Okay, welcome everyone. This is Brian McLeod here with David Garfinkel for the monthly live training for August 2011 for Fast Effective Copy. Are you with us, David?
I'm here. Hello.
Excellent. Fantastic. We're going to talk about the ultimate secret to swiping tonight. And boy, this has been a lot of fun. We spent the whole evening the other night putting this together, and just you stunned me at one point with something that we're going to share tonight, and I can't wait to get to that part to tonight's
I don't
training.
carry a taser. What are you talking about?
You said something that totally threw me for a loop when I mentioned a classic legendary ad as a great example, and I can't. I'm not going to reveal. I just will wait till we get to that part, and I think you'll find you folks listening tonight that it stuns you like it stunned me. That wow, hidden trap.
You know, it's funny. I've never really talked about that before. It was a guiding principle when I put together all my templates, especially the headline templates. But you know, speaking it out loud, I can see how it'll be valuable. If it stunned you, it's going to shock a lot of other people, in a good way, maybe. Yeah. We'll see.
Oops, sorry, I forgot to turn my mute off. Okay, well let me close this little control panel out of the way so I can see a little better. And let's talk about what we're going to do tonight, David. The overview of tonight's training. We're going to try and really move along at a brisk pace and keep tonight's training packed and just move through quickly. But we've got a lot to cover in tonight's training. Do you want to run through these, David, and just kind of give them an outline of what we're going to talk about?
You bet. So swiping. Well, swiping in terms of copywriting, most people here have probably heard of it. We're going to get real specific, what it is and what it isn't. And, you know, the thing about swiping is it can bring you such rich rewards and can also get you in such serious trouble. We're going to talk about how to stay on the right side of that. Of course, copywriting templates are a tool where you are permitted to and encouraged, in fact, to swipe, and we'll talk about how to do that. But we're going to talk about how to go beyond that, too. We'll talk about how to swipe from real live copy that worked with a couple of examples. And you know, we're going to actually do some live swiping on the call so that people can see, and we'll be glad to take questions afterwards. And I'd like to get your input, get your comments. I know some of the people on this call have some of our guests have probably tried swiping. In fact, I know they have, and that it's worked, and love to hear some success stories, and if anyone's really brave, a couple of failure stories, because we learn from our failures too. So that is a lot for one evening. This could be a whole day seminar, but we will keep it moving along.
Yeah, well, it's one of the things that we talked about is that this could easily turn into its own course on swiping if we're not careful. We got to keep it chunked way down and very compact so that we can keep moving through, because these are topics you could go a whole night on each one, really. Let's talk about the good side of swiping first.
Yeah, I think you have the real heart for this, especially because of your background as a professional musician and artist. So why don't you start, because I certainly have some other things to say about it.
Yeah, understood, absolutely. And I guess the main point that I wanted to make, if we're going to say that there's a good side and a bad side to swiping, if we're going to say that there's a side that's good about swiping, it's probably because someone's got some kind of little hang-up or catch about the word swiping. I mean, it is called swiping after all. It doesn't sound very good, does it?
Right.
It's just you know, for a term that's made specifically for jargon for copywriters, boy, did we pick a crappy word.
True.
If you think about it, it just carries such a stigma. And I think the point that I want to make is that when we use swiping in copywriting, what we're really doing is modeling or channeling inspiration. And it's more than acceptable. It's really necessary if you want to get good at figuring out what works and what doesn't work. Swiping is not just copying and pasting, and David will discuss that more clearly later on. But I think the easiest way to think of it is in terms of the way a musician or an artist will be inspired by the music of another artist, and it will shape what they do next. They're so inspired by this, they see how great that worked, and it changes the direction of their own work because it's result oriented. They love the end result. They loved what happened. And so bottom line is musicians and artists swipe all the time, and we don't put a negative connotation or stigma on it because we think of it more in creative terms. With copywriting, in many cases, swiping is a matter of someone finding something that works, the bones, the structure of a sales argument. And one of the things we're going to do tonight, later on in the call, is deconstruct some ads together, and I think that will illustrate and demonstrate very clearly what I mean by the bones of a sales argument. But in many cases, that's the best way to think of swiping, is that you're finding the anatomy of what worked about it and trying to apply that, engender that same energy, that same enthusiasm that the copywriter has injected into the reader on the piece that worked well. You want to try and model that success. Would you agree, David, that it's really kind of modeling is maybe a better word than swiping?
Oh yeah, but modeling is so conceptual, and swiping seems like shoplifting or hijacking a truck full of cigarettes or something. I mean it's just a much more visual and concrete image. But the best, I see, maybe I'm gonna qualify my answer a little bit, Brian. The best part of swiping is like modeling, but not the worst part, not the dark side.
Yes, I agree with you 100%. Absolutely. And maybe let's just segue into the dark side of swiping. Would you care to go ahead and jump in and take this slide, David, and lead them through these thoughts? Because
you can be the good cop about swiping. I'll be the bad cop. Yeah, the dark side of swiping is when inspiration turns into duplication. You guys may know that I was editor of an old-fashioned print subscription newsletter about about 11 years ago, called What's Working Online. It was an internet marketing newsletter. People paid $500. People from like Disney and Goldman Sachs and Playboy, all these corporate subscribers. And so I got into that industry briefly, and I remember sitting around with some of the executives at the company, which was called briefings, and they told this story about, never heard the guy's name, but there was this publisher of newsletters who he had a business newsletter for the pharmaceutical industry, and he would patiently wait. Apparently he had spies planted in the different pharma companies. He would wait till somebody Xeroxed a page out of one of his newsletters, and then he would threaten to sue, and he would collect a $25,000 bounty. That's how he made most of his money, not from subscriptions, but from suing his subscribers. Sort of nasty, huh? But that is the kind of swiping that will get you in trouble, not necessarily photocopying pharmaceutical industry newsletters, but copying stuff word for word. You talk about inspiration. There are so many songs that have inspired other ones, and everyone's ended up very happy. Then there's the very famous case of George Harrison's song, My Sweet Lord, which sounded an awful lot like the Chiffon song, He's So Fine. And there was a long copyright infringement lawsuit, and Harrison ended up having to pay just south of $600,000, which this was in 1981, so that's 30 years ago. Well, that's maybe close to $1 million because he, quote-unquote, unconsciously infringed on the copyright. What's the point of all of these wild and expensive stories? The point is that if you swipe too accurately, if you duplicate rather than model, if you use word-for-word swipes, if you copy other people's words in large numbers exactly, you can open yourself up to a world of trouble. Plagiarism is, considered bad. It's morally bad, and copyright infringement is a violation of the law. And of course, The sad thing is when you're just starting out in a business, it don't matter. You always get caught when you have the most to lose, because that's when people find it profitable to come after you. So we don't want to swipe by literally copying things word for word. And we'll talk about how not to get caught in that trap, but I wanted to bring it up right away because a lot of people, Brian, you have a background in the music industry. I have a background in publishing. We know about this stuff just from the work we've had to do, and mentors and bosses and managers that have told us not to. Not everybody knows this, so wanted to hopefully that will clear things up a little bit about the dark side of swiping and what you don't want to do.
Absolutely, and you made a great illustration there with George Harrison's what at the time was I guess $600,000, really $1 million. That's a 7-figure ding. Now, if you're a Beatle, I'm going to guess that probably doesn't affect you all that much, and you're able to just keep on chugging forward. But short of being a Beatle, I'm going to think that a 7-figure judgment against you is pretty much a death sentence to your business. So, not something you want to have happen. And I'll just finish up this section by mentioning that the technology now is so much more advanced than it's ever been for detecting plagiarism, for detecting copying, for detecting the use of others' intellectual property, and there absolutely are what in the patent business are called patent trolls. David alluded to them earlier. These are business entities that their own model is built around obtaining settlements and judgments against people for the intellectual property rights that they hold, the properties that they own. All they do is go out trolling and fishing and seeking examples of infringement. We all can probably remember cases from the stock photo libraries where they hired these guys to go out and look. It's serious business, guys. I mean, and so I guess we can't admonish you enough to be smart about the way that you go about swiping things. It's not about cutting and pasting mindlessly. It's about modeling. It's about architecture. And so that's the dark side.
Yeah, it is.
Why don't we talk about what to do and what not to do instead, David? And I hate to lean on you again so fast, but you really have a great construct here to share with people about the two schools of thought when it comes to swiping. Would you handle this one too?
Sure. So we've gotten rid of duplication. That's like not okay. That's out of the question. We're not endorsing it. We don't want anyone in this call or anyone listening to the recording to do that. The next level up from duplication, where it starts to get legal, but it's very difficult to do, in my opinion, and it depends on the kind of person you are. Some people may find this way easier. Is the strict and literal form of swiping, where you follow the structure almost the way a forger of a sculpture would follow all of the curves and dips and dimples and changes in texture and so forth. If there's a verb, you put in a verb. If there's a comma, you put in a comma. If there's a period, you put in a period. If there's an adjective, you put in an adjective. So you're making what might be called in semantics an exact isomorphic model. It doesn't have the same words, but it has all of the same elements working in exactly the same way. And there's an argument in favor of that. I personally don't think it's a great way to go because it limits you too much, and what you end up swiping if you use that literal model can sound stilted, it can sound awkward, it can sound forced and contrived. One of the most important things about copy, as I see it, is that it come across as conversational and casual, and it should not call attention to itself by being weird. It should actually fade into the background so that you get sucked into the message of the copy and the promise, and if it's for you, to end up buying what's being offered. School of thought number two.
David, I'm sorry to interrupt, but boy, that was a really, really great point, is how stilted and weird it can be when you try and shove a square peg into a round hole to make copy fit when you're trying to follow that literal, verb for verb strict school of thought. That's how we wind up with swipes that just seem off. There's just something not quite there, because when they were written, they were fluid, and now they're you know, a template that other words are being shoved in. You're trying to make the thoughts make sense rather than express a thought, if that makes sense. Rather than clearly communicate a fluid thought, instead you're trying to form your thought into that box and make it work. Now that can work too. I mean, I don't want to down that side of swiping either. We know that it works for a lot of people, and there's a reason why those initial ads were successful. But boy, you got to be careful, or you will end up with weird sounding copy. That, I think the key takeaway line that you said was that it doesn't draw attention to itself. That's what you want. You don't want people to go, well, why is that there? You know, or what is that? Why is that jumping out of the copy at me?
Yeah. So thank you. I mean, one thing. Well, a lot of this is a matter of philosophy. Is it? Do you think that you're that you know? I mean, see, the second school of thought is loose and figurative, rather than saying, well, you know, this bullet point contains one verb, two adjectives, a noun, and a conjunction, and then another noun. I like to look at it more in terms of function, in terms of what does it do. So I might say, well, this bullet point calls attention to this aspect of the product in this way as a blind bullet point by you know, creating curiosity about this emotionally exciting part of it. So I'm sort of stepping back. I'm modeling and being inspired at a much higher conceptual level, but then I'm coming back down to the ground level concrete stuff, and I'm finding a different way to do it that might not have a comma, or might not have a conjunction, or might have more adjectives or fewer adjectives, or two verbs instead of one verb. And that can work too. In some ways it's easier, in some ways it's harder, because it does require a little more of a different kind of thinking, where you're moving up and down from abstract to you know, concrete and abstract and concrete again. But I think that's better. In other words, you say, okay, how can I do something that gets the same job done and sort of feels like this, but isn't necessarily exactly like this, element by element. And you know, that second school of thought, I think, does what our third bullet point says here. It focuses on the essence, you know, the internal nature of what's going on at a micro level, at a bullet point by bullet point level, and a subhead by subhead level, and the essence basis on a macro level. What's going on in the whole sales piece? It starts out with a person in this frame of mind, and it takes them to that frame of mind. How can we do the same macro thing in our sales piece? But again, just to underline this last point, do not copy word for word. Don't steal. It's, you know, bad morally, and it's illegal, and it's a good habit to stay away from.
And it often doesn't work. Let's just be real honest with people. If we're going to be totally selfish about it,
yep.
It's a good way to screw it up. It's not even good swiping. Copying word for word and trying to use chunks of other people's copy, almost inevitably you wind up getting caught out. Someone will point it out. So, and you know, we've all been swiped before. I think anybody who's been in the business for any time, has written any letters that a lot of people have seen or bought from, they've been swiped. They've seen some of their stuff done, and it always saddens and disappoints me when someone swipes something of mine and it shows up somewhere down the line. I think, God, couldn't you have at least put the littlest bit of effort into trying to make that your own? It could have been so easy. I immediately see what I would have done with my own copy to make their offer better that they stole.
Yep.
If that makes sense. But I love the point that you mentioned about the essence, and we talked about that word. You know, it just reminded me when you were talking now, not to get too airy-fairy or whatever, but it reminds me of a way that Dr. Wayne Dyer describes things sometimes. He says it's the tomato-ness of the tomato. Which,
Yes.
if you really get back there and think about that, that's what we're selling, is the tomato-ness of the tomato. It's the essence. How can you capture what is the tomato? How can you communicate to people the tomato-ness of the tomato? And boy, did we go off into California land. I mean, yeah, you feel right at home in San Francisco now, don't you?
Well, yeah, and my inner tomato-ness is really communing with what you're saying, too. Yeah, baby. So,
All right, all good.
But, you can to take it back to the practical, you can usually answer that question by saying, what does it do? What images does this conjure up? What sequence of feelings occurs? What actions does it make people want to take? And then you think, okay, so how do I do that in my context? Let's move to copywriting templates, because everyone on this call has, or listening to the recording, has access to the templates. And it just we can just brainstorm a little bit, you and I, Brian, if you like, on a couple of the templates to show how you can swipe the templates. Templates make swiping easy. So templates are like it's sort of ironic, because they're the training wheels. They're the easiest way, but also if you're in a hurry, if you've got a lot to do, the templates can save you a tremendous amount of time, because it's not like the templates are for beginners, or they don't really work. They're based on proven stuff that would work pretty universally. But if you've never swiped before, the templates are a great place to start. So,
oh yeah, it's like it really is like a safety area to really ease you into how to do how to effectively swipe copy that's proven. I mean, that's really the nature. That is the tomato-ness of copywriting templates, is how to swipe effectively. If we really get right down to it, how to look at what's worked before and model it and use it in your own writing to save time. That is the tomato-ness of the tomato here. I love the different. Yeah, I got to get off that. I apologize. That's the last tomato-ness. That's the last tomato-ness I'll talk about today.
Okay.
Fill in the blank.
I know why you're saying that too. It's because we looked at somebody's site yesterday and said, "Looks like you spilled tomato soup all over it."
I got tomato on the brain. I got mater. Tomater. Fill in the blank versus step-by-step, I think, is a neat distinction, David. Could you kind of fill in those blanks for our listeners, what the difference is to you, and then we'll show them the examples. We have two good illustrations here from Right Inside Fast Effective Copy. Template 4, Build a Body You Can Be Proud Of, is a fill-in-the-blank style, while the Ennobler is more of a step-by-step. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, a fill-in-the-blank is literally where you have a structure of a particular element of copy, like a structure of a headline, and there's one word that you fill in, and boom, you got a headline that's going to work if you do it according to the instructions, if you really pay attention to how to use it, and you look at the models that are in there. So whereas the step-by-step, I wish I could do fill-in-the-blanks for people on stories and negative optimism and guarantees, but I can't, because stories, it's going to look real contrived. If it was just a fill-in-the-blank, it wouldn't read easily. It wouldn't read naturally. It would read like it was forced. So the step-by-step say, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, and then I give an example of doing those things. But let's actually take a look at these templates, and I'll show you a fill in the blank first. Do you want to bring that up? Can you do that?
Sure. Give me 1 second. Let's go to headline templates. Okay, and you guys, it may get a little messy here with the windows. I apologize, but I think this is probably the easiest way for everybody to see what we're looking at. Can you read that okay on screen?
Oh yeah, I can, and I got a 15-inch laptop, so that should work. So headline template number 4. This is straight from inside the Fast Effective Copywriting templates. Build a body you can be proud of. That's the headline that originally worked for a bodybuilding course. And you see the swipe is either have or build or get or own a blank you can be proud of. And so, you can see the examples if you want to scroll down the page a little, Brian. You can see one for personal coach. You can see one for kitchen remodeler, web designer, bicycle store, ride a mountain bike you can be proud of. The idea is that in the headline you are showing someone how to take advantage of the thing that they're interested in a way that they can be proud of it. Luxury auto dealer, own a car you can be proud of. And this this particular headline may or may not work for you, but you got to admit the fill in the blank. It's pretty easy. Personal trainer, sculpt a body you can be proud of. Architect, live in a home you can be proud of. These are things that will grab people's attention and get them in the right frame of mind to read the rest of your copy.
Yeah, I love this one right here for the landscaping service, which really gets right to the core emotional driver that the prospect has. Imagine a postcard coming from a landscaping service is finally a yard you can be proud of. That's exactly what the homeowner wants. And it's just a great example of how a good swipe can get you right to the core of what the person wants, because it's based on finding that real emotional hook in any given market.
Yes, and that was why I chose this headline, because pride is a main emotional driver for a lot of people. I guess it is one of the 7 deadly sins, but as I've often said when copywriting, the 7 deadly sins are your friends. Okay, do you want to move on to the next point, which is the step-by-step templates?
You bet. Next, we're going to go to the story templates, which is template number 5, and that is the ennobler. So let me open up the story templates file, and once again, we'll make it a little bigger for everybody. Just bear with me, and we'll zoom this on over, and that gives us a little bit more. Whoops, a little bit too big. There we go. How about that? Does
That's
that work
good
for everyone? Okay.
Yeah, I think people can see that. So, all right, the ennobler. So, ennobler is a story, a sales story that you use in your copy, and the purpose of the story is to show how special your product or service is. Now, with this, I didn't want to do a fill in the blank because there are just too many different possibilities. But if you understand this structure and these steps, someone has a problem, so you describe the problem, obviously. Number 2, ordinary solutions don't work. So you can imagine where that would leave the person with the problem. He's tried everything. It's not working. The solution provided by your product or service worked like gangbusters. And step 4, the reason your product or service works is because it's special and unique, and it delivers the kind of results that people can't seem to get anywhere else. Okay? So with those 4 steps, I'll show you the story I made up for a coaching service called Snap Out of It Coaching. Okay? Cecil was a bright and talented man, but he kept having trouble succeeding in business. All the self-help processes he used, all the therapy he tried, all the personal growth seminars he attended, nothing seemed to work. Then one day, a friend told him, so see, that's the first one, that's the problem. And you see in the second sentence, normal things didn't work. Third step is in this second paragraph. One day a friend told him about Snap Out of It Coaching. Cecil called Louise, the head coach, and set up a free appointment. In a matter of 3 months, Cecil had, for all practical purposes, a brand new life. He was happier. He was making a lot more money. And most important, he felt better about himself. Much better. Okay, so let's see. Where's that in the steps? You want to scroll up just a wee bit, please? So the solution and product service worked gangbusters. He felt better. He was making more money. He had a new life. And the 4th step is the reason your product or service works is because it's special and unique and delivers the kind of results people can't get anywhere else. That's in our last paragraph. Today, he credits it all to Snap Out of It Coaching. He says it's nothing like he'd ever seen before, and what he especially likes is how everything made sense for him, every step of the way. Everyone who knows him can't believe the changes he's made. As one friend put it, finally Cecil has found his groove. And now for him, I would say the sky's the limit. Okay? Whole cloth, total bullshit, totally made this up. But it would be nice if there were such coaching that would magically fix problems that nothing else could. And that's an example of those 4 steps.
That's a great one. I mean, that's a great example of how to model, a formula, which in many cases is what we're talking about tonight, is following a game plan with the copy. And so when you find a structure of a sales argument that just makes sense, that works, it's a lot easier to kind of do both. You're filling in the blanks and you're going step by step. You've got a section which clearly needs what it needs. You give it that, and then you have a game plan or a roadmap for the rest that follows. Like you have a headline you're going to model. You're not quite sure where else to go with it. The step by step can help when you go to some of the other copywriting templates. And the neat thing about the way that the system works, David, is that the help doesn't always come from the obvious. Sometimes subheads make great headlines. Sometimes, bullets make great subheads. So there's a whole lot going on there, but some of the areas I would suggest people look at are obviously the story templates. The negative optimism would be a really good place to look as well. You want to touch on that very lightly? I don't want to get into a whole negative optimism conversation, but how can somebody put that to work for them with copywriting templates?
Negative optimism is great if you have a problem, if you have a product that solves people's problems and you've had the same problem yourself and you want to quickly cut through the distrust barrier. A lot of times, people have a problem, they feel secretly that they're the only one in the world who's ever had it. I mean, sometimes, some of the negative emotions make people tend to feel isolated and paranoid and like nobody understands them. I mean, you see this really, in an extreme case with teenagers, right? But it's true of all of us. Adults are usually a little better at hiding it, but they feel that way. And so when you find someone who's been through the same thing, who admits it, and who says, I understand how you're feeling, and I know how bad this is. I know how bad it feels. That tends to create a lot of bonding and trust and identification, cuts through a lot of the barriers quickly that you often have when you're trying to sell to a person who's in a certain amount of pain. And negative optimism is the phrase I came up with along with my friend Armin Morin for the optimal use of negative energy. It's not about optimism, although many people think it is. It's about the optimal use of a negative situation, and so those all in the templates we have the same thing. We have the steps. That's a step-by-step template, and then there's an example so you can see how it works.
You bet. Well, let's jump on over to the next section, which is outside of our little protective wall of copywriting templates and fast, effective copy, and out into the big bad world of copy that has worked in the marketplace. And so, how do you want to go through this this slide, David?
Well, let's move through it quickly, and then we can actually spend some time on the examples that we have, if that's okay with you.
That sounds great.
Okay. So when you're swiping from copy that works, there are basically 4 things you can look at swiping. Oh, really important to understand. You don't have to be a swiping perfectionist or a master or a maestro. You can swipe a little at a time. Maybe you're just having trouble with your headline or your opening sentence or your opening paragraph. A lot of people do, and rightfully so. You should focus on that because that's, a particularly crucial part of the copy. You can just swipe a headline and opening from one thing and, move on to something else. You might swipe a bullet or a series of bullets or some body copy text. Maybe there's a story that you can model or adapt. So that's the second area to look for. You might swipe a guarantee or an order card or an order page, any of the body copy, and the closing copy, the buy it now. I was just on an online forum today where a very experienced copywriter was suggesting some changes in language from buy it now to something. Let me see if I can even find that. Maybe I can while we're talking. And um, so anyway, she said we try Get Started now, and then we found that works better. That was a swipe in a conversation among copywriters. Fourth thing is energy and transference of emotion. If you can figure out, and this is a little trickier, takes a little more experience or maybe a little more pondering, if you can figure out what the energy is of the copy and how the emotion is being transferred, that's very powerful too. And so those are the four main things that you're looking at swiping when you're swiping from copy that's worked.
Yeah, you know, Tracy asks a great question. How can we know that the ad that we're looking at has worked? How do we know that we're swiping from a proven ad? Do you have any thoughts on that, David? I do, but I'd like to hear what you have to say.
Sure. Well, if it's direct mail or if it's a direct response ad in print, you know, repetition is usually a good sign. If somebody keeps mailing.
Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! That was what I was going to say. But okay, well,
no.
That's okay.
If maybe we could hypnotize everybody and make them think I didn't say that, give them temporary amnesia.
All right, never mind. Forget me. You go ahead.
All right. And online, it's sort of the same thing. If money, continually spending money on a on some copy, whether it's pay-per-click ads, Facebook ads, Google AdWords ads, display ads, if something's up for a long time and they're selling stuff, you know, longevity is in copy is a good sign as to how something worked.
Yeah, and I guess that question really comes, it's sort of like from a modern what's working now kind of perspective. It's pretty clear with the classics that worked, right? We have some great examples, and we're going to share with you on the call tonight and in the PDF that comes along with this slide deck, some links to some places where you can get some great proven swipes from over the years, a lot of legendary ads and things like that. So I guess the question really comes down to, if you see something that's really exciting to you, how do you know? Like if it's inspiring to you, how do you know, is this working or not? And you know, that's a good question. But repetition, frequency of seeing it in a modern context. When you see banners, lots of media buys going on, and banners following you around all over the internet, because those kind of media buys, people are spending real money to put those ads in front of you and follow you around. That's a pretty good indicator that at least that's a funnel that's working. How well it's working, we can't really know necessarily, but certainly it's making some money here somewhere. They wouldn't be chasing after it, so it's worth investigating. I tend to look more to the classics and to the sort of long-standing proven ads for swiping. Maybe it's a fascination thing for me, that I'm just fascinated by looking at the Sea Monkeys ads and some of the crazy old comic book ads, and just old advertising is just a personal geekery for me.
Well, there's a great thing about doing what you just said, Brian, and that is you start to recognize the patterns. So, well, there's no way to be certain whether something works until you try it. If you're familiar with the basics, the standards, the old effective ads, you'll start to develop a sense of what's going to work and what is working. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the objective stuff, if it's been around for a while and it's connected with repetition and money, that's usually a good sign.
It is indeed. Well, let's talk about probably the most classic letter, often referred to as you know, the most successful sales letter ever. David, you know a lot about this, probably more than me. Would you lead us on the hunt here for the Wall Street Journal letter?
Sure. I mean, the reason it's called the most successful letter ever is the amount of time it was mailed and some math that my friend Denny Hatch did when he interviewed the circulation manager. He sort of tricked the guy into, this was several years ago, he tricked the guy into giving up enough information so Denny was able to conclude that the ad had, as a letter, it had made between 1 and 2 billion with a B dollars in subscription revenue for the Wall Street Journal. And it's a very simple story. We can go over the story, but why don't you talk about the bones of it, since
I'd love to, and I want to point out that on this slide here we've got making the jump to video and an example, and we can't really show, because of GoToWebinar and the way that works, I can't really play through a video through the webinar too conveniently for you. So what I'm going to do is give you a live link to that afterwards, so that after the event's over, you can link through and watch this video that we did, where we actually modeled the Wall Street Journal letter. The copy was written by my good friend Kevin Rogers, and I created the video component for this, and certainly it's a perfect example of trying to model the bones of what's commonly called the Two Young Men letter. Now, should we show them? Should we go to the original? Should we jump over here and show the letter first, David?
Yeah, let's show the letter. It's so short we could probably actually read it out loud. I mean,
sure. Here's a little.
You want me to read it?
Yeah, let me blow it up a little bit larger there for everybody. Okay. Can you read that okay, David? Is that big enough?
I can read it fine, sure.
Okay.
Excuse me. Dear reader, on a beautiful late spring afternoon, 25 years ago, two young men graduated from the same college. They were both very much alike, these two young men. Both had been better than average students. Both were personable, and both, as young college graduates are, were filled with ambitious dreams for the future. Recently, these men returned to their college for their 25th reunion. They were still very much alike. Both were happily married. Both had 3 children. And both, it turned out, had gone to work for the same Midwestern manufacturing company after graduation, and were still there. But there was a difference. One of the men was manager of a small department of that company. The other was its president. What made the difference? Have you ever wondered, as I have, what makes this kind of difference in people's lives? Oops, where'd that go? People's lives. It isn't a native intelligence or talent or dedication. It isn't that one person wants success and the other doesn't. The difference lies in what each person knows and how he or she makes use of that knowledge. And that is why I am writing to you and to people like you about the Wall Street Journal. For that is the whole purpose of the journal, to give its readers knowledge that they can use in business. A publication unlike any other. You see, the Wall Street Journal is a unique publication. It's the country's only national business daily. Every business day, it is put together by the world's largest staff of business news experts. Each business day, the journal's pages include a broad range of information of interest and significance to business-minded people, no matter where it comes from, not just stocks and finance, but anything and everything in the whole fast-moving world of business. The Wall Street Journal gives you all the business news you need when you need it. Knowledge is power. Right now, I'm looking at page 1 of the journal, the best-read front page in America. It combines all the important news of the day with in-depth feature reporting. Every phase of business news is covered. I see articles on new inflation, wholesale prices, car prices, tax incentives for industries, to major developments in Washington and elsewhere. And there is page after page inside the journal filled with fascinating and significant information that's useful to you. The marketplace section gives you insights into how consumers are thinking and spending, how companies compete for market share. There is daily coverage of law, technology, media, and marketing, plus daily features on the challenges of managing smaller companies. The journal is also the single best source for news and statistics about your money. In the money investing section, there are helpful charts, easy to scan market quotations, plus abreast of the market, heard on the street, and Your Money Matters, 3 of America's most influential and carefully read investment columns. If you have never read the Wall Street Journal, you cannot imagine how useful it can be to you. A money-saving subscription. Put our statements to, as I'm reading this, I'm realizing we did one more thing. It's pretty amazing, which I'll tell you about as we talk about the bones. Put our statements to the proof by subscribing for the next 13 weeks for just $44. This is among the shortest subscription terms we offer and a perfect way to get acquainted with the journal. Or you may prefer to take advantage of our Better Buy 1 year for $149. You save over $40 off the cover price of the journal. Simply fill out the enclosed order card and mail it in the postage paid envelope provided. And here's the journal's guarantee. Should the journal not measure up to your expectations, you may cancel this arrangement at any point and receive a refund for the undelivered portion of your subscription. If you feel, as we do, that this is a fair and reasonable proposition, then you will want to find out without delay. You will want to find out without delay if the Wall Street Journal can do for you what it is doing for millions of readers. So please mail the enclosed order card now, and we will start serving you immediately. About those 2 college classmates I mentioned at the beginning of this letter, they graduated from college together, and together they started in business, in the business world. So what made their lives in business different? Knowledge, useful knowledge, and its application. An investment in success. I cannot promise you that success will be instantly yours if you start reading the Wall Street Journal, but I can guarantee that you will find the journal always interesting, always reliable, and always useful. Sincerely, Peter Archon, publisher. P.S. It's important to note that the journal subscription may be tax deductible. Ask your tax advisor. Wow. What a letter, huh?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a classic, and the great thing about this letter is it's so easy to understand the argument. We were talking about it last night, David. The bones of this letter to me appear to be so simple, which is basically there's 2 young guys. They start off in the same place. They face a fork in the road. One goes one way, one goes the other way. On this side, the guy's super successful. The other guy, not so much. What's the difference? Whatever it is you're selling. One guy bought it, the other guy didn't. Which one do you want to be, the guy who succeeded or the guy who failed? That's the bones of the letter. And it's just such a simple thing to see how you could apply that to dry cleaning or whatever end result it is that you're selling in your products or your services. One customer did what we want you to do, and they are happy now. The other customer didn't do what we want you to do, and they're not so happy. Which do you want to be, happy or not so happy? That's the argument.
Yep, absolutely. And the interesting thing about this letter is that he never quite spells out that the CEO is the one who subscribed to the journal, and the poor schlub who was only a manager didn't. But you sure get that. You sure make that inference, don't you? You sure come to that conclusion on your own, don't you? The one thing that I realized as I was going through this is there's an open loop created, and I've never heard anyone talk about this, and I've never thought about it until this moment or 5 minutes ago, when they talk about these 2 guys at the meeting, and then they start talking about the Wall Street Journal. They said, and what about these 2 guys? So what that, where it says right there at the end, you want to scroll down a little more there? I want to scroll down a little more. All the way to, yeah, there it is, about those 2 college classmates. It's like 3 paragraphs from the end. I think it's called the Zagornik effect, or in neuro-linguistic programming, it's called an open loop. All of the information that comes in there between the time they left off, as a reader, you're wondering, well, what happened to those 2 guys? It sort of drops into the unconscious mind. So all of that benefit copy, it becomes just a little more believable because of the way they've structured the letter. That's a very sophisticated thing that you can, of course, do in copy. Structure it where you leave someone hanging, then you pound them with the benefits, and then you come back to finish your story. I've seen this used in any number of ways. I remember I got, when I was really paying attention to it, I got 2 or 3 things in the mail when there's a lot more direct mail. This is quite a ways back before the internet really took off, and there were adaptations of it. I've also searched on the internet. At one point, there was a clown college that trained people to become clowns, and they had, a tale of two clowns, and one of them went to clown college and one didn't, and I'm sure you can.
Right, the tale of two young clowns.
Yep.
Absolutely. Well, as I mentioned at the top of this section, we've got a video here, but I can't play it effectively through GoToWebinar. The sound won't come through, which is a necessary component for the full experience. But in the members section, there'll be a link right below this video for the replay where you can go ahead and click through to a little video page to watch that. And of course, that's just for members only. Please don't share. This is simply for our members to share personally amongst ourselves. It's better, I don't know, edify tonight's conversation about the Wall Street Journal letter and how a couple of guys who are pretty good at what we do tried to do what we're teaching here tonight, which is use the bones and a pretty strict. We stuck to it pretty closely. Also, there's a few creative twists, but not too many. We really did try to be a little bit more literal than figurative.
Actually, I'm wondering if we can call on one of our attendees, because I know from a previous conversation that he has used the Wall Street Journal to sell weight loss, and if Jim Van Wyck would be willing, Jim, would you let us know if you're willing, and maybe we could. I'll do my best to unmute you and see if unmute Jim Van Wyck. Try, yeah. Jim, hello. Oh, Jim may be distracted. Well,
Jim may not be next to the computer at the moment, David. But if he types in, I'll monitor the chat. And if Jim wants to just jump in at any point and go, I'm here, we'll unmute him and bring him on. But I'd love to hear what he has to say, like you.
Okay, that'd be wonderful. All right, well let's move on then to our next slide.
Okay, tonight one of the things that we're going to do is go from the legends to a more modern side of things. There's a document that sort of made its way around the internet a few months back, maybe it's been 6 months ago, that I thought was just fantastic and a lot of fun from my own personal viewpoint, but it's a great example for tonight, which is Swiping from Billy Mays. I'm pretty sure most of you are familiar with Billy Mays. He's the guy with the dark black beard and the blue shirt that bellows his message for all kinds of different products on direct response TV. And there's a lot of messages that are very, very similar that we'll look at tonight in a list of like 21 of these back to back. You'll start to really see the patterns form as we go through it. But also, I think it's pretty neat the way that you'll see the cadence and rhythm that they do in their copy. It's very common in infomercial world, not so much in sales letters or other types of copy, but it's a neat thing to watch and see how you can incorporate that into your copy. Let's just jump over to it. It's on a web browser, so hang on, let me jump over to Safari and we'll take a peek at it. This is a PDF that was published by, oh, wait a minute, you know what, hang on, we've got questions and we've got a comment. I think, oh, there it is, hold on. Willie Mays was a great ball player. Thank you, John. Oh, good. Yeah, this is compliments of Tom Trush, copywriter and marketing strategist for Right Way Solutions. I don't know Tom, but I sure do appreciate him taking the time to publish this and put it up on the web for everybody. This is the address for the thing, and it's live and accessible on the web. If you search for Billy Mays transcript, you'll find it. Let's just go through a couple of these, shall we?
Sure, that sounds good.
Impact gel. Well, first let me zoom out a little bit and show you something that you'll notice right away. Number one is the length and how condensed the copy is for each of these spots. They're all pretty much one page. Okay, the length of each of these as I scroll down, and you may not be able to read, that's okay, just look at the block of text. Okay, as I read each one of these is an ad. So that's about how much room we've got to work with for each of these spots. But let's start with the impact gel, and I'll zoom it in so that you can read it a little better. Can you read that okay, David?
Yeah, I can read it. Would you like me to read it?
Okay. Sure, if you'd like. And if you want to read it like Billy Mays or you want to read it like David Garfinkel, whichever.
I've always wanted to read it like Billy Mays. Well, I'll probably read it like sort of a midpoint between them. Are you on your feet all day? Does contact pounding cause your ankles, knees, and backs to ache? Hi, Billy Mays here for the world's greatest insole, impact gel. Why am I smashing my hand with this hammer? To show you this amazing protection you get from impact gel. And this hammer is real. The same gel technology is used in our impact gel insoles. If you have sore, tired, aching feet, impact gel absorbs more shocking pressure than other insoles. Unlike regular insoles that I just haven't had enough cocaine. I can't do it that fast. Break down over time. Impact gel is injected into the areas that provide pressure relief where you need it most, the heels and balls of your feet. The gel never breaks down. And when impact occurs, the insole soaks up the shock, and the force now ripples through the gel pads. No regular insoles can do that. Even after continuous pounding, these M&Ms don't break. Imagine the relief you'll feel in all kinds of shoes. They even work in cowboy boots. I use them, and they work. Talk about shock absorbency. I'm going to run over my hand with this 6,000-pound car. That's the power and protection of impact gel. Whether you're a runner, a professional, or a stay-at-home mom, you deserve the comfort of impact gel. Stop spending hundreds on inferior insoles. I'm going to be having dreams about this all night, Brian. Thanks a lot. Remember, nothing absorbs the shock quite like impact gel. Call now and get a pair of our impact gel insoles for only $29.99. But that's not all. We'll also send you a pair of our impact gel inserts free. They're perfect for dress shoes and casual wear. But I'm still not done. Call right now and we'll double the offer. Just pay separate shipping and handling. That's right. You get 2 sets of insoles and 2 sets of inserts, a $90 value, all for $29.99. Here's how to order.
I can't believe we got Garfinkel to do Billy Mays tonight.
I can't believe you did either. That was sort of fun, I got to admit.
Yeah, it is fun, and I get requests often to do David Deutsch doing Billy Mays.
Oh, I'd love to hear that.
Maybe one of these we'll do Billy Mays via the conduit of David Deutsch. But here's what's neat about this one. Let me back up a little bit here, and let's talk about a couple of things. Number one, right at the top of the thing, are you on your feet all day? Does the contact pounding cause your ankles, knees, and back to ache? The problem is right up front. They lead with the problem, hammer you with it. The language is really good and visceral. Pounding, causing your ankles in the ache, and smashing his hand with the hammer, right? I mean, what better demonstration and illustration of proof? One of the things that DRTV gets right very, very effectively is demonstration and illustration. What I mean by that, as an example, is let's say you're selling some kind of like tire spray that you put in the tire to keep it from going flat, right? If you run over, even if you puncture the tire with a nail, it still doesn't go flat. So you can imagine a video, a DR spot, where the first thing we'll do is we'll shoot a car running over a board with a nail sticking up over it. We'll do a close-up shot of the tire going over the nail, puncturing the tire, and coming off of the nail. Then we'll cut to a 3D animation of a cross-section of what that actually looks like inside the tire, where the tire goes over it, it punctures, and then the self-sealing technology will bond and close that hole before any air ever escapes. And they'll demonstrate how that works through using the animation to show what real-life motion video cannot. And they do it very quickly. It happens very, very quickly, and it happens very effectively, and you'll see it over and over again. For a grill, they'll show the grill cooking a burger, then they'll cut to a 3D animated version of the technology that makes the grill special and what makes it work. So you go, oh, all right, first of all, I can see myself using the grill in real life, and I can see why it's good for me to use it, because it has this great technology. The fat runs off the Foreman grill into the little thing, and I can see how the shape and how it's designed, and it happens in an instant. I mean, you're talking about something that happens in a very small moment of time, but it's very powerful. And so as we look at some of these scripts, let's go down and look at another one. The grater plater. What would happen if you combine a cheese grater with a plate? You'd have a plate that grates. It's almost Dr. Seuss in its cadence and rhythm. Hi, Billy Mays here for the grater plater. It's no ordinary plate. Watch this. Grate cheese with ease. Again, great cheese with ease, Parmesan, Romano, even Asiago. There's no wrong way to use it. Back and forth, side to side, round to round, all the cheese stays in the plate. Pass it around the dinner table and grate as you go. Use it for pasta, for pizza, for salads, for zest, it's the best. Whether it's a lemon, lime, or orange, you get perfect results each and every time. You can't mince garlic with one of these, and if you use a press, it's a mess. Watch this. You can puree garlic fast, quick and easy, and all the natural juices stay right in the plate. It gives you the consistency of garlic butter without the butter. Add a little olive oil and herbs, and it becomes a dipping plate. Benefit, benefit, benefit. Real use, end result, end result, end result. Let me keep going into some of these others. Number one, also notice how we are at the end. We're going to double the entire offer absolutely free. Just pay separate shipping and handling. You get it all, a huge value for just $10. Here's how to order. Here's how to order. You know, it's such a simple thing, but, you know, on television where you got to get them to pick up the phone and call, you don't leave that to chance. In copy, we often forget how important the simple call to action everywhere it needs to be really is, and you never make that mistake.
It's an assumptive close. It assumes, I want this. I need to know how to order. How do I order? That's what Here's How to Order answers the question. It's almost like Jeopardy, you know. How do I order? Here's how to order.
And you'll also notice that every time Billy's formula is, hey, Billy Mays here. Hi, Billy Mays here for whatever the name of the product is. Boom, the big benefit and big promise. In this case, it's, hi, Billy Mays here for OxyClean, the stain specialist, powered by the air you breathe, activated by the water that you and I drink. It's Mother Nature approved, and it's safe on your colored fabrics. It's, you know, and we'll go to the next one. Let's just go to another. Hey, Billy Mays here for the Mighty Putty, the easy way to fix, fill, and seal virtually anything fast and make it last. Now, one of the things that you'll see also throughout these is they use the power of three consistently over and over again. And David, you want to introduce people to the concept of the power of three real quick in case they're not familiar?
Sure. Three. There's a magic to there's a magic to three. It just seems to be built into the human experience, morning, noon, and night, before, during, and after, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I don't know. So when you do things in threes, it seems to resonate. You just cut, activate, and apply.
Yeah, right. See, there's the three. You cut, activate, and apply. Fix, fill, and seal virtually anything. It's not a glue, but a super-powered epoxy that you can mold to any shape and apply directly to most any surface for an everlasting bond. Ordinary epoxies are a mixing mess. With Mighty Putty, you just cut the dough, simply need to activate, apply, and here they went to 4, and let it dry. Okay, so
and let it dry. Yep.
They needed the 4th for that one. But again, you'll see it over and over again. In fact, I'll just jump to another ad and we'll find it again because it will be there. Okay, this was a long one for the orange glow. Let's switch to a simple one. Okay, here we go. With the slider station, just scoop, press, and cook right on your stove. The fast and easy way to press and cook delicious sliders. Here's the formula again. Hi, Billy Mays here for the Big City Slider Station, name of the product. The fast and easy way to press and cook delicious sliders. You know, those restaurant mini burgers everyone loves? Big benefit, big promise. Here's what this is all about. No more squishing and squashing or flipping and flopping, the cadence and the rhythm. With the slider station, just scoop, press, and cook right on your stove, the power of 3. Over and over again, these little jam-packed spots will show you the formula again and again and again. I'm going to scroll down to another ad. Billy Mays here with another amazing new product. You've got to see it to believe it. It's called the Ding King. It's a do-it-yourself dent and ding remover with professional results. Okay, the big promise. Let me find a power of 3. Simply apply firmly in the middle. Now pull the brisket. It's like dialing the dent away. Okay, that's not one. The dent is gone. Your car looks like the dent was never there. I'm just scrolling through it as fast as you are so that we can show you these examples. Mostly because, again, I'm not making it up. They're just over and over again. These guys use the same formula. And Billy, it's interesting. An observation I've had is he certainly doesn't classify himself as a copywriter. He's a pitch guy and on-air talent, but he is a copywriter and really thinks in these terms. It's really one of the most cool aspects of the show him and Sully did, Pitchman, was watching Billy and Sully, their creative input on the scripts and the things, because they know, having done so many spots, what sells, what works, what worked for those situations. And a lot of times it seems a little cheesy, and it seems a little hypey, and it seems a little cornball, because you're only thinking of it in the really extreme, extroverted Billy Mays rubric. Imagine how you can do the same thing when you sell what you sell, even if you sell financial investments with a much, much more toned down appeal. You can still use that power of three argument over and over again very quickly right at the top. You can use the same introduction that shows, hi, this is so-and-so, and here's the big benefit. All of those same models are going to work well for you, especially for like a lead gen video or some kind of video introduction that you want to put up online. As video gains more and more traction, it makes sense to pay more and more attention to how these guys are selling in direct response TV. David, did you want to jump in? I sensed that you were trying to say something a minute ago.
Oh, no. I just, well, yeah, I was thinking about Pitchman, and David Deutsch and I have talked about that. I actually tracked down a doctoral dissertation where a person went around and interviewed Pitchman, and we both find it fascinating. And Gene Schwartz talks about how pitchmen do what they do, and that crucial point in a pitch called the turn in his book Breakthrough Advertising. It's great to study this. One of the things you want to do is sort of get some of these patterns running into, burned into your neurology, running through your unconscious mind. You can get it by reading stuff out loud like I was doing. You can get it by hand copying it. You can get it just by watching and listening to it and reading it silently. So I just think it's a great example. And a lot of people hate Billy Mays. A lot of people love him. But whether you do or not, you can learn a lot from him. And as you learn to find the essence and the superstructure of the copy, yes, then that's what's going to make this so much easier for you.
Hi, David Deutsch here for the Hercules hook, one of the fastest and easiest ways to hang just about anything without any tools. No more pounding, drilling, or damage to your wall. With the Hercules hook, you just push, set, and hang.
Wow, how did you channel David Deutsch channeling Billy Mays? That's pretty good.
Did that work?
Yeah, it works.
All right, let's switch back. Oh, wait a minute, we got a comment. I once worked for an architect that only used adjectives in threes when he spoke. It drove me nuts, says JD. And now he says, I'm dying over here. I'm dying over here. Okay, well, I'm sorry about that, but you'll have to move on.
All right.
Let's jump back to, oops, wrong tool. Let's get out of Safari and get back to our presentation, shall we? Mm-hmm. So just to, once again, to kind of tap on what we talked about. First of all, in the PDF, there'll be a link to this online version. I'm not comfortable with you sharing that guy's work directly with anybody. That's his choice, but it is published on the web, and we'll give you a link to where to find it on the web. And special thanks to him. Thank you, Tom, whoever you are. I don't know you personally, but you've done a nice service to the marketing community in general by taking the time to transcribe those and share them. Swiping from Billy Mays is a fun thing to do, whether you're a personal fan of being bellowed at or not. There's no question that this is a guy who can outsell damn near anybody, could outsell damn near anybody on television, and there's a reason. That formula works. The power of illustration and demonstration, use it, figure out how to model that in your copy, and pay attention to that rhythm and cadence. There's something magic about it. And don't forget, here's how to order.
That's right.
Okay, I want to talk about the one that sort of baked my noodle last night. Let me set this up, David. Here's what happened. So we're putting some of the examples together and just gathering the materials for tonight's training. And as we're talking about different ads, and I suggested, hey, why don't we talk about the Caples piano letter? They all laughed when I sat down at the piano, but when I began to play, okay, that's the setup. David, tell me why you said, I don't know about that one. Here's why. And I went, oh, my God, we have got to talk about this tomorrow night.
Yeah. There are certain things that that worked really well, that are famous, that are difficult to swipe until you've developed a certain level of proficiency, a certain level of skill. And one of the reasons I didn't choose that very famous headline, which experienced copywriters have swiped recently, still all the time, both comedians, people trying to be funny who are like, newscasters trying to be sarcastic on TV, and direct marketers who know how to do it. But I didn't include it in the headline templates, and I would not recommend this ad for one reason. It's really hard to get a first-person story right. There are so many traps you could fall into, so many ways you could do it wrong. It's so much easier when you're telling someone else's story than when you're telling your own. You might be too self-conscious. You might be too self-aggrandizing. That's okay if you're any of those things, if you really know what you're doing. But I never assume that when I'm creating tools like a template. So it's very hard to get a first-person story right. It's even if you're very comfortable talking about yourself and you don't have a self-aggrandizement tendency. And so what I would, if you're listening to this now and swiping is a brand new idea to you and you're excited, because as you should be, because it allows you to leverage on other people's successes, go easy on yourself. Do it one step at a time, and do the easy stuff. It's, we already have programming against doing it anyway, because you're not supposed to copy and you're supposed to be original and blah, 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 blah. So it's really okay to swipe, but don't try and swipe the hardest stuff. Start easy and wait till you really feel like you're ready. Don't push yourself out of your comfort zone with this stuff. There are too many hidden traps.
Yeah, it's very interesting, David, because the notion of getting the first-person story versus the third-person story is very tricky, right? That's treacherous terrain, because it's very easy for someone to fall into misrepresentation and take the cheating route and just start, for lack of a better word, just start bullshitting.
Yeah.
And the best copy resonates with truth. It rings with believability. And part of that is because it should be true. It should be based on the truth. It shouldn't be bullshit. It should be real. And what we do is we embroider on that reality. We add this emotion to it. We add this power and magic and sparkle on it. But it's based on a kernel of truth, of reality. And when you get into trying to tell the first-person tale, to me it seems like the obvious trap is to fall into the realm of fantasy making, of just nonsense. And if we're, again, let's get out of the morality police business and say, fine, you're a scumbag and you're trying to do it anyway, you're probably not going to be very effective at it. It's not going to be believable. You don't have the conviction. You don't have the belief in what you're selling that really resonates as true. I mean, look, we've all seen the examples of the crazy hyped up stuff that sells in the make money niches and some of these other corners of the internet. What we're trying to teach is a much more mainstream appropriate style of copywriting that's calmer, that's more lasting, that really doesn't change. If you notice, the power of the Wall Street Journal letter is as effective today as whenever that letter was last tweaked and the last control of that was mailed out. Whatever it is, the language hasn't really changed that much. It doesn't rely on strippers at the Spearmint Rhino Bar or the latest guru dying who shared his deathbed secrets with you in an encrypted USB thumb drive. I don't know what the story is, but you get my point. That sort of nonsense silliness is not part of the conversation. When you're talking about a first-person story, it's very easy to fall into the trap of going the wrong direction with it, and especially if you're trying to fill in the blanks where you don't have content to fill in the blanks. That's, I think, I guess the essence of why David says the third-person story is always easier than to try and make up facts that aren't true.
Very, very much so.
Okay, well let's keep going, and I do want to check on I want to check on the questions here. Wall Street Journal turned that into a new TV ad campaign, says John. Really interesting. I didn't know that. Wall Street Journal turned that ad into a TV ad campaign. Huh. I will keep an eye out for that. I'd love to see that. That's pretty interesting. Didn't know that. Thank you, John. Oh, another note coming, actually fairly old now. That shows you how much I'm paying attention. Thank you for pointing out my insufficiency, John. How do we know when we're done is a super important question to ask ourselves all the time. But in particular, when it comes to swiping, how do we know that what we're doing has worked? How do we know that we've done an effective job swiping it? You want to jump in here, David? I flapped my gums a lot on that last one.
Oh, okay. So this has to do with you know, we can copy the words, we can copy the structure, we can copy the essence, we can copy the beginning, the middle, or the end, and the bones of the sales argument. But sometimes people do that, and it's like copying the notes without feeling the music. And it comes across flat and mechanical and machine-like a little bit. Just as important to make a swipe work is, you know, copy is about emotion. It's about the person who's writing having emotion, and it's about the person reading it getting stimulated to have emotions. And so transfer of emotional enthusiasm is what makes copy work. And you need this. It's a little difficult to describe how to do this. I would just say let down your hair and relax your defenses a little bit and read like an engaged prospect who's engaged with the original copy. See how you feel, and then see, do you feel the same way when you read the swiped copy that you've written? Does it have the same level of heart and intensity and intention? Does it read like the person's all in, like they're really putting some skin in the game? Often when that doesn't happen, it's because you're writing the copy in a mercenary way rather than as a believer. You're not putting your entire heart into it. You're not putting You're
not putting your soul into it. You're not putting your soul into it. You do not believe in what you're selling or the way that you're selling it, and you're going through the motions, but you're not being real.
That's right. And so if you're not being real, if you don't have the same level of conviction and belief in what you're doing, and it's not showing up as enthusiasm and intensity, and that's hard to do mechanically or hard to quantify. It's more a way of being, and it has a lot to do with commitment. You want to be totally committed to making the ad work, totally committed to getting the right person to buy this, totally committed to doing everything you can in the ad, maybe even going out of your comfort zone. Maybe you're even a little embarrassed, and it's a little over the top. So that's
yeah, that's a huge point. Sometimes what you need to do is get yourself out of the way and do what you've got to do for your prospect, because you know that if they don't buy from you, they're going to go over there and get screwed over by the other choices that are inferior and wrong for them. Your job is to save your prospect from the bad decisions and alternatives that exist, because you have the real solution for them. And one of the things you'll notice we talked about Billy Mays earlier on, the product selection process for these guys was very stringent. Why? Because they were going to go all in on trying to sell this thing, and they can't do that if it's a piece of crap, or at least if they don't believe in the product. They don't believe that it has a shot. They don't believe that it's going to sell. They don't believe that the product will work. If all of those things aren't in place, they cannot go to that intensity level that they go to sell the product as effectively as they sell it. And so sometimes it's kind of outside the realm of swiping, but it comes down to product choices and how you choose to position the product. If you can't get behind it and believe it, you're going to have a hard time really trying to sell it and prove that to somebody, because you know why? You're afraid of the proof. You're afraid that you're going to get found out that really it's not as awesome as you'd like people to believe that it is. And so that's going to come across. It's going to come across because the way Carlton says is selling from your heels. You're kind of pussyfooting around instead of going right in for the sale and saying you really need this. You really should do this. Big difference in whether or not the ad connects emotionally with the gut punch that it needs to. And by gut punch, again, this is language that's energetic, and some of our members, I imagine, are frightened by those kinds of terms. That sounds so intense. Emotional intensity doesn't always feel like that. It just connects. It's like, yeah, that they know exactly how I feel. Wow, yes, finally, right, awesome. That's transfer of emotion and enthusiasm. It's not something you do to someone. It's something you do for someone. Off soapbox. Off the soapbox.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I agree.
Okay, let's jump to the next little slide here, which is a couple of places where you can find some really good swipes. And this is by no means an exhaustive list. It's simply a place where I know for sure you can find some great swipes right away. And one of them is brand new, and I want to, even though we've put him last, I just want to give him props first. And that's Mark Dresner. Has started a pretty new site that he's a member of the Warrior Forum, where many of our members also are warriors, and he frequents the copywriting section as I do. And Mark's been sharing these regularly, and you can go back through the copywriting section of the Warrior Forum, and you'll find Mark Dresner's posts. He goes by Drez, D-R-E-Z, on the Warrior Forum. You can find a bunch of his posts where he shares individual little classic swipes, but his site is full of them, so feel free to take advantage of what he offers there and get them. They're really great. I've really enjoyed reading these that he's been posting regularly. So it looks like he's a new site on the block that's very much like Michael Sinoff, one of our members and friends. Michael has just a legendary site on the internet. One of the great gems of the internet for direct response, I think, is hardtofindAds.com, and of course he's got a sister site, hardtofindseminars.com, that's just as good. But hardtofindAds.com is all about these great classic swipes, and I would highly recommend that you go there and check it out. OHP Direct is a reseller or is a seller of information products, many of them written by John Carlton and Jim Curley and some of the best copywriters in the world, some of the best copy that you'll find for golf letters and self-defense. And what else do they sell over there, David, besides golf and self-defense?
I don't know. I mean, there's bodybuilding, which is, kind of like.
Why don't we take a look? That would make sense, right? Here's where the link to OHP Direct goes into their product list, and so here we've got a bunch of different products. Actually, it looks like this is all golf. Maybe doesn't appear to be any of the other stuff.
Yeah, I think OHP Direct is like a subunit of the larger company, and I don't know what the larger company is called.
Oh, good. Well, there's some great ones here.
Yeah, I mean, just reading those letters will show you how, the real key thing is the bones of the sales argument. That's what most people don't know how to do. And you go through enough of these, and you hand copy them, and you read them, and you swipe bits and pieces, and it starts to run in your veins and in your neurology, and that's what you're looking for. You want to get to the point where you know it, where it is you, where it's not like, well, now I'm in my sales mode. It's like that's a part of you that you can just tap into.
Here's that headline we were giggling about, like junior high kids last night, David.
Yeah, embarrassingly simple secret instantly unleashes the explosive power hidden in your tee shots without adding a single thing to your swing. Well, if you took out the word tee and you turn shots into shorts, it gets very embarrassing, very juvenile, very quickly.
But
that's the power of raw emotion, right?
It is, yeah, of raw something. Absolutely. This is great. So that's OHP Direct, guys. A great source of great letters to read, and, it's certainly, I would call that the Carlton style. I don't know if you can know for sure whether you're reading John's work or you're reading Jim Curley's work. I don't think you lose either direction. Jim Curley's a fantastic copywriter.
He's a great copywriter.
And really does capture that energetic style that John does so well. Advertising copy swipes. Here's Mark Dresner's site that I mentioned earlier, and as you can see, it's a whole site, guess you need to opt in to get his stuff, but worth checking out. Really enjoying his series that he's been putting on the Warrior Forum. And here's Hard to Find Ads, Michael Senoff's fantastic site where you can go and watch. Like, here's various comic book ads. If you click on that, that should take us to a little ad. Can you hear the frogs? I think we're getting a chorus of frogs. My famous froggy evening on the patio in South Florida has begun.
I'm listening, but maybe you need to turn up your headset. I can't hear them.
That's all right. If they decide that they want to join us, they have a mind of their own and they don't listen. Drugged out. Let's see what drugged out killed Nicole looks like. Here you go. Drugged out OJ. I killed Nicole.
Oh my God, OJ!
But
oh no.
Yeah, exactly. And there's just a ton of stuff in here. Michael has really done a great service to the marketing community with this as well. And this is only the beginning, folks. There's an awful lot. If you start digging around and trying to find great swipes and put a little time into it, spend an afternoon in Google, you can find some amazing collections that people have spent enormous amounts of time putting together. I personally will make the confession that I am among the worst swipe file keepers in the game. I get a lot of people who email me or say, hey man, you got a swipe for this or that, and I honestly have to say I have no idea. I'm quite certain that I do, but I have no idea how I would find them. I have friends who are maniacal about how they organize all of their swipes, and they can pull it up in an instant's notice. I just kind of go there and jump in for creativity, and I look at it almost like as copywriting divination. I land where I'm supposed to land at any given moment and figure out how I'm supposed to make that work or put it to use in what I'm doing. But I love swipes. I have a huge, enormous swipe file collection myself just for that very purpose.
Yeah, you can swipe from the inside of your brain if you retain a lot of the copy that you read. Or I think hand copying is very good for that if you find a few things. But the point here is we want to show people how to use it for inspiration and to strengthen your copy. It's not something you absolutely need to do. It's good to know how to do it, and that's why I'm hoping we gave people a very thorough basis for swiping, and we can find out if there are any.
Me too. I hope that was effective for people and helped everyone find some new ways to be more effective with it, or better ways to feel good about doing it, feel safe doing it. I think is maybe part of the thing that's important to look at, whether you feel like you can do it safely, and hopefully we've armed people with the tools they need to be able to go out and use some of the stuff that's been proven to work. Use what's been given to you without feeling like you're doing the wrong thing. Let's take a look at questions. I think we have something here in the chat box. Jason says, you guys rocked it. Thanks, JP. Appreciate you being here, brother. You're a good guy, and appreciate all the enthusiasm you've had for the product and how it's helped you. You've given us a beautiful testimonial because of the results, so thanks. I appreciate you being here, brother. Anybody else have any questions or comments? We've got open phones. If you have a mic or you are on via telephone, we'd love to have you. Just raise your hand. Let me open up the control panel so I can see what's going on. When should you not swipe is the question. When should one not swipe? David, you want to jump in there?
Well, it's such a broad question. I don't know. I think if you're, certainly if it feels like you're trying to force a square peg into a round hole, if it doesn't make any sense to you intuitively or rationally, you shouldn't swipe. I think also if you don't like the copy that you're swiping from, whether or not it seems like it should work, you've got to be able to connect with what you're doing. Otherwise, you're going to be fighting it at some level all the time. And maybe, another time you should not swipe is when the only copy you have to swipe is something that didn't perform very well. That's not going to help you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great point. And when you should not swipe is, when you feel like, number one, when you feel like you've got something to say. I read recently a phrase that reminded me something, which is oftentimes copywriters are so busy trying to be somebody else, another copywriter that they respect, that they forget the most important thing about being a great copywriter is being a great copywriter as you. Not being a great copywriter as trying to do Clayton Makepeace or trying to write like Gary Bensaminga, but trying to write like you write, trying to communicate effectively as you communicate. That's what we all strive for in this business, finding our own voice, our own effective way of communicating to people. And when you should not swipe, to me, starts with the feeling that you've got something to say. So get with the business of saying it and know that you have swipe files and proven structures out there for your assistance, like a reference guide that sits on your desk, like you would look up a word in a dictionary or a thesaurus or an encyclopedia. You have your swipe files that you can go to and say, how would David Deutsch have handled the order process here? What would Gary Halbert have said to close this letter? That might be interesting. Suddenly you get a new approach to what's still you, right? It sparks in your mind how to phrase it and how to say it and what to do. And that's very authentic and still very much you. So when not to swipe, when it feels, like it might be infringing on your own ability to be you, if that makes any sense.
Yes. I think so. Somebody, I'm trying to find out who it was that said, we are the sum totals of our experience, products of our environment, and divided by our ignorance. I don't know who said that. Just the quote. But we are, ultimately, I think the purpose of swiping is to give you enough experiences of successful stuff so that you can forge your own unique, successful voice as a copywriter. So I agree with you.
Jason asks if we can talk a little bit more about rhythm and cadence. And, if there's more to say about that. And sure there is, man. I like to say it in this way. Great copy reads like good jazz. And there's a rhythm and a flow to it. And the reason I chose Billy Mays tonight was one of the reasons, is they do some of these things that are almost Dr. Seuss-like, almost a little bit. They would fit squarely in my cheese marketing tool belt, which includes things like the free mystery gift and things that people who suffer from marketing-itis tend to scoff at as beneath them, but are deadly effective in the real world, where all we care about is whether or not people pick up the phone and call or send in their request form or do what we want them to do. The cheesy aspect of it, if you can get over how corny some of that is, it's remarkably effective to have these simple lines where they'll say, if you sit and split, then it just sets up a rhythm automatically in the language that you use. Maybe it's easier for me because I was a songwriter for many years and still do write music, but as a musician, we look for that kind of musical rhythm in the lyrics. So it's almost lyric writing in a way, what you're doing. You're creating something that has a sort of singable appeal to it. David, you have something to say about the cadence and the rhythm that we discussed tonight?
Yeah, I think there's always a cadence and a rhythm to good copy, but I think a lot of it depends on what it is that the copy is meant to sell. Billy Mays he wants to be entertaining in a medium, TV, that is primarily entertaining to begin with, and he's not selling real serious stuff, right? He's selling soles, stuff to make your shoes more comfortable. I mean, it's important, but it's not like somebody's will or a marriage certificate. I mean, it's a little more casual in the greater scheme of life. But the Wall Street Journal letter, I just pulled it up on my screen, and there's another. To me, it's a rhythm of a musical rhythm as well, but it's more like a rhythm of a symphony orchestra. I mean, listen to this. Have you ever wondered, as I have, what makes this kind of difference in people's lives? It isn't the native intelligence or talent or dedication. It isn't the one person wants success and another doesn't. The difference lies in what each person knows and how he or she makes use of that knowledge. To me, there's a very graceful, stately elegance. And, you know, this is the newspaper of the stock market, you know, the very barometer of the world's, or maybe you could say the very producer of the state of the world's economy. Fairly serious, and as is classical music. So I think all copy that works has a rhythm, and I think that it becomes more pronounced and more punchy, and maybe even a little more amusing or possibly cheesy when he gets down to something like Billy Mays. But I think it's there all the time. One of the things we're looking for is to calm the critical mind and engage the more emotional mind in the deeper parts of the unconscious mind. And rhythm does that. Rhythmic language does that. Chants do that. Music does that. And copy that's rhythmic does that as well.
Here's a great example of the Billy Mays rhythm thing here. And let's just look at it, what it could have been, and how much better the rhythm and cadence makes it. Here's the line. No more pounding, drilling, or damage to your wall. With the Hercules hook, you just push, set, and hang. Now, this could have been 3 sentences, right? This could have been, no more endless pounding on the wall, bang, 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 drilling a hole through the thing, or and damage to your wall, written a whole series of sentences to try and punch that through. But instead, you see how fast it gets you the visceral reaction to it, the sort of takes you right to the experience of pounding, of drilling, and damage. The extra words didn't add anything to the equation. You got the same raw essence of it much more efficiently by grouping them together in that way. Pounding, drilling, damage. And then you've got the solution. It's 1, 2, 3 simple. How you just push, set, and hang. That's all there is to it. All you do is push, set, and hang. Right?
Yeah, and you'll notice also that there's an interesting thing about syllables. The pounding, drilling, and damage all have 2 syllables. Push, set, and hang have 1. And so anything with 1 syllable has got to be simpler, the unconscious mind figures, than something with 2 syllables. So it's obviously easier to use the Hercules hook than it is to use the old way.
Absolutely, that's a great point about the cadence and the rhythm of it, and it's not just in one-word combinations either. Here's another great line from the same spot. Heavy or light, big or small, it hooks, hangs, and secures them all. The secret is its reinforced steel design. It penetrates any drywall and braces itself to the back to hold up to 150 pounds. Now that's the strength of Hercules, and of course we can't see the visual of whatever that was, that they're probably hanging a bunch of cinder blocks or something on it. But the point of it is, heavy or light, big or small, it hooks, hangs, and secures them all. Dr. Seuss, right? And then it's followed right behind that with the secret technology. It's micro-weaving bonding technology. There's always some kind of amazing secret thing that makes it unique, that makes it special, that makes it one of a kind, different from everything else that you might have tried. The secret in this case is its reinforced steel design. It penetrates any drywall. It braces itself to the back to hold up to 150 pounds. So, yeah, this is really about selling on TV, and that might not work the same in your written copy. You might need to be slightly different in your approach, but I think you can see how that really is effective at getting the words into the brain. Right, and it's all that. I mean, that's the same goal whether we're selling through the medium of television, through radio, through video, through the written word. We're trying to convey an idea and get it drilled into the brain. And so, anytime we can bring something that works great on TV or radio into the written word, and vice versa, those are good things generally. But you just have to think about them a little different. That's all.
That's right. Yeah. So. That's good.
All right. Do we have any other questions? Let me double check here in our list. John says, Billy Mays made cheesy acceptable, unlike Ron Popeil. Any thoughts as to why? I'm not sure I fully agree with that. I think Ron Popeil and Ronco is one of the great success stories of all time in direct response television. I don't think there is a Billy Mays without a Ron Popeil, if we're going to be honest. Ron Popeil and Ronco started in the game way before just about anybody. I really can't think of anybody who was effectively selling in direct response television as a medium before Ron Popeil. And the Pocket Fisherman and some of those early Ronco products, they're happy childhood memories for me, quite frankly. I had one of those Pocket Fishermen. Whew, often catch you a little fish in the creek. It's a great story, and I'm not sure if I 100% agree with that, but I think for one, it's force of personality. Let me tell you a little personal truth about Billy Mays. This was a kind man. Billy Mays took time out of his day at a trade show with me at the Electronic Retail Association in Las Vegas one year when I was there with my previous company. And we had a 2-camera crew sort of following me around the show, and we're going to different places. And Billy was kind enough to do a setup with me for a good 5 or 7 minutes for our documentary. Just out of the blue. I mean, when you're Billy Mays and you're giving away Billy Mays being Billy Mays, you're giving away something of tangible value that many people spend an awful lot of money to have. And it didn't blink about giving me all that free time and him doing the whole demo. He knew what that meant to our business as in terms of an implicit endorsement and how that would feel and come across to the public. That's the kind of sort of just kind guy that Billy was. He really is a real guy's guy. I've spent a little bit of time with him. I didn't know him well, but I knew him well enough to know each other when we saw one another, and to have spoken, on multiple occasions. Him and Anthony Sullivan and Matthew Leskow form a really funny sort of triangle sitting outside our booth in Las Vegas one year bitching about who doesn't pay their bills. That was a fun conversation to be a fly on the wall for. Hearing, some colorful language about who wasn't paying properly on time. But Billy is everything that you saw on that television show from my personal experience. He was a genuine guy. I think that comes across. He's just a likable guy. He's the kind of guy that you can tell is friendly and is kind to people that he meets. And so maybe Ron Popeil doesn't have quite that same appeal. He's a little creepier, frankly, to me, appearing than Billy was. Billy seems like the guy you'd like to, sit at the bar and have a drink with, or sit next to at the 21 table, both of which I've done. So yeah, that's my feeling. Maybe that makes sense. Ron Popeil sold by far more than Billy Mays could have dreamed of, says Jim. Yeah, Ron Popeil is sort of the godfather of direct response TV, and so many years of selling product. Billy got a high profile towards the end of his life, but was primarily just a pitch guy, for most of that time, and really picked up his game towards the end, and the television show really helped with his profile, but was not the kind of industry visionary that Ron Popeil was by any means. So that's my take on it. Just taking a peek here at the comments, seeing if anybody else have any questions about swiping tonight. We've approached 9:45 here on the East Coast, which means we've been going for a good hour and 45. And we want to respect your time and keep everybody engaged. Anybody have any other questions about swiping or any of the materials that we have tonight? Or frankly, any questions that you have for David or I are welcome anytime every month. You're welcome to bring your questions, your troubles, whatever's vexing you at the moment with your promotions. We're happy to try and help you out. I'm not seeing any hands raised, so I'm going to give it one more last call. And if we don't have any other hands, then we will gladly clink glasses and say thank you and good night. One more check, and I don't see any hands. So folks, thank you for participating.